Welcome to episode 19 of the With Ingram series of podcasts. I'm Philip Ingram, and today I have the enormous pleasure of talking to Tracy Edwards MBE, the Round the World Yachtswoman. Warning, this episode is fantastic. Tracy, it's fantastic that you could spare some of your time to come and chat with me today. You are, as I said beforehand when we were chatting, sort of one of my personal heroes because I've done a little bit of sailing in the past. But for those that haven't been into sailing, that are listening to this out there, can you just give us a little bit of an introduction as to who you are and how you came to fame?
Yeah, so my name is Tracy Edwards, and I skippered the first all-female crew to ever sail around the world when we raced in the 1989-90 Whitbread round the world race on a boat called Maiden. And we were much more successful than people thought we were going to be. And we came back to a hero's welcome. And I've been fighting for women's rights really ever since then, and put together some other all-female crews and done some other bits and pieces.
No, that must have been a real challenge. You got the, I think it was still called at the time, the Yachtsman of the Year trophy. Have they changed it to the Yachts Person of the Year trophy since then? Or you're still officially a Yachtsman?
No, I'm a Yachtsman.
And then you got an MBE.
Yeah.
An absolutely fantastic achievement. I don't know how you managed to do that. But
there were many people that didn't know how I managed to do that. When I went to get the MBE from Buckingham Palace, my mother was with me, obviously, and she looked at me and she went, "How the hell did this happen?" I went, "I don't know."
It's a good. I had a morning session whenever I went. It's quite a good session, and it was Prince Charles that gave me mine, and it was one of those just really nice. Everything just seemed to work.
Yeah.
But a funny aside story on it, because I was going in with a military crowd, the guy that was in front of me got his dress uniform out of the boot of his car. He just got it back from the dry cleaners and hadn't had a chance to check it. And as he'd gone through the dry cleaners, all his rank badges and all the other bits and pieces had gone ping off it. So he had to go in and get his MBE not properly dressed.
Great.
Exactly, the standards. But racing around the world, therefore, you're used to being isolated with a very small group of people for a very long period of time, and therefore, the current pandemic situation must be pretty easy for you.
It's different because there is something about being forced to stay at home that I guess every human being in the world is, sort of experienced that. So that's slightly rebellious about it, but it's for the best, and that is why we do it. But of course, you choose to sail around the world. But I would say the process, the thought processes, the psychology, and what you need to get through it are very similar. So I think having a routine, having a plan that you stick to, which I sort of have to admit, when we first went into lockdown, I kind of lost the plot a little bit and became very much more relaxed about how I was working and what I was doing. I mean, I'm very lucky to have my office in my house. I do miss having my team here. And of course, them turning up at 9 o'clock every morning meant I had to be in the office at 9 o'clock every morning.
Yeah.
That slipped for a while, and it was only after sort of a couple of weeks I thought, whoa, I have to get hold of myself and have to go back to a routine. And it's the same on a boat because you've got the watch system, so you know that your day is divided up into chunks of 4 hours, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, eating time, getting dressed time, brush teeth time. I mean, it's all just so regimented, but that is what I think really helps you get through it, because you're racing as well, which gives you the drive. I think it was quite difficult when we first went into lockdown, because we were right in the middle of a tour with Maiden sailing around the world, and suddenly, the boat can't go anywhere, we can't interact with people. So coming up with a new focus and a new mission and a new goal was our immediate focus, and that's fundraising to sort of get back on track for when we, are allowed to. But it's very similar, and it's also taking care of yourself. We hear the word mindfulness bandied around a lot these days, but it's really important, to look after yourselves and be aware of how we're feeling and if we're talking to people and all of those things. So very similar.
Yeah, it's interesting watching the press and bits and pieces. There's everyone sort of bleats as soon as the government makes a statement, and they haven't done something that specifically focuses on their personal circumstances to tell them what's going on. Do you think we've become a country of people who want to be dictated to rather than those that want to use their initiative and common sense, which you'd been forced into doing every day because there couldn't be someone coming along and if it didn't go exactly as the manual said on board the boat, there was only you and the rest of the team to fix it?
I do think that, I mean, I have thought in the past that maybe we've changed a little bit, that we don't seem to be very, have initiative and fix things for ourselves. And I think problem solving is something that's really gone downhill.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was ever there in education. I was lucky enough to have parents who taught me problem solving. Sailing also is a great teacher of problem solving. I mean, you basically spend your whole time going through processes solving problems. And that's been a massive, massive help to me through my life. I think the difference between sort of up until now and this year is people do want to feel that someone is in charge and that they know what they're doing and that they're doing a good job and that we are in this together and we do wait to be told what to do. And I think that is slightly different from sort of not having an initiative before. I think that what really, really annoys me, and I think probably everyone else in the country, is that no one minds the government getting it wrong and saying, so sorry, we definitely got that wrong, we're going to change it.
Yeah.
We got it wrong because of this is the reason how we know that, and this is how we're going to change it. And everyone will go, oh right, okay, everything's fine. But the number of times that we got that right and it was this or it was that, and the whole Dominic Cummings thing, I think sent people into incandescent rages. And I don't understand why the government can't understand why we are angry when people have towed the line, behaved themselves, stayed inside, not seen loved ones who've been ill, not visited relatives, not seen newborn grandchildren. So I think there is a collective feeling at the moment that we do need someone in charge, and I don't know anyone else, I don't feel like that's what we've got.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that there seems to be across politics, no matter where you come from, and my accent lets you know that I'm not particularly bothered by English politics, but even though I live in England, but no matter where you come from, there seems to be a complete lack of leadership in any of the political parties across the board, and there's this when they do get things wrong, they fail to say exactly as you said, I've got this wrong. They always try and talk their way and spin their way out of it. And then as they're spinning their way out of it, all the opposition parties seem to do or the other team seems to do is they try to increase the spin, and instead of going, hey, stop, let's get this right, here's a better idea, and move on. It's our confrontational approach is I think it's bad. I think it undermines
I would have to add a proviso there, though, because 6 of the most successful countries who've got through the COVID-19 virus are led by women. And I think that is very, very telling. And you've just used the word confrontational. And I think that is where we fall down in politics at the moment. You look at Jacinda Ardern. I read a wonderful article about her, which basically the reason that she's such a successful leader is because she hasn't allowed herself to become a male clone. A lot of women leaders think that they have to be men. We don't, and we aren't. And I think the way that she's been is her feminine approach to leadership, her care, her empathy, her ability to tell the truth, to admit when she's got something wrong, to make incredibly decisive decisions, and stick to them, to show her leadership. I think that comes from, being female, being nurturing, and knowing that you have to get your people out of a dangerous situation. And you look at Angela Merkel and other female leaders around the world. That's been such an interesting lesson in leadership.
It has. It's fascinating. And then we come closer to home, and we've got Nicola Sturgeon, and we've got Michelle O'Neill, and Arlene Foster in Northern Ireland, and the Chuckle sisters now seem to be cooperating a little bit more. Nicola seems to not get as much of the flack that seems to then go on in Westminster whenever you've got the male-dominated piece. It is fascinating seeing female leaders, and again in the military, I was in the intelligence side, and it's the one area of the military where there was always a lot of female empowerment and female that came through. There was the regimental sergeant major of the whole corps when I came into it was a woman. There were women commanding officers of different units and women getting to fairly senior levels. Women were allowed to go and be part of the special duties units. And in the early 70s, they were, in inverted commas, in as handbags. But in the late 70s and after that, they became fully fledged operators who had to pass exactly the same selection process. And a lot of them did get through and were in very, very dangerous situations. And again, going into combat, in different places around the world, the women from the intelligence corps were at the forefront the whole way through, and it's having watched the women coming through Sandhurst and then coming through my battalion when I was a commanding officer. The girls, if you were comparing like for like, the girls were significantly better than the men the whole way through. And I think part of that was because they felt they had to be, and they drove their way through. But they were significantly better. The men would sit back and be lazy in a lot of their approach, just expecting things to happen. But the girls didn't expect. They got in and got it done, and absolutely pleasure having a lot of them under command.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. Every woman I've ever met feels we have to do 100 times better than the blokes to get where we're going. Yeah, it's good to see that there are changes happening in sort of in the armed forces and in other areas. It's disappointing that there aren't more changes. I have to say.
Well, security is the area I'm in at the moment, and there's a big push, certainly on the technical side of things, to get more girls in through the STEM process and to get into security and let people understand that the wider careers that are there. It's not just the security guard you see at the front of the supermarket or the pub or at the nightclub. There's working into cybersecurity with National Cybersecurity Centre. There's working into the intelligence side of things. There's so much more to it. And manufacturing across on it. But you did a small bit of time with CEOP and trying to help children understand a little bit more about internet safety and online reputation, did you not?
Yeah, I did. So I went through quite a nasty patch of life in 2005. Lost everything and really had to start from scratch at the age of 43, which is never a sort of a happy process, but I was very lucky, and the first real job I ever had in my life, as I say, was at the age of 43, and it was working for CEOP, the Child Exploitation Online Protection Centre, for an extraordinary man called Jim Gamble, who shone a light on an area that I hadn't been aware of, as my daughter was just starting to go online. But and also sort of that's another area I think as well, where men and women are so equal. That whole environment, that whole entity was completely equal across the board, and I think what I loved about it as well was the whole sort of holistic look at joining policing with childcare, with social services, with fraud, with sort of major crime. I mean, I'm not a policeman or a woman, and so for me to go in, it was a real eye opener. And I mean, I know CEOP is special, and I think it was very different when it first started. But that was a phenomenal experience, and I learned probably more than I wanted to about what goes on online. But I'm glad I did.
Yeah, and it's important we get the messages out. But you can take all of those things forward, and having done that Control Alt Delete Reset life, you've come back around to getting Maiden again, and you said Maiden was on a round the world trip that got interrupted. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've got Maiden back, what Maiden was up to, and what you're doing with the charity?
Yeah, so I had to sell Maiden at the end of the race. We'd come second overall. We'd won 2 legs. We'd done much better than a lot of people thought we were going to. I mean, some guys were taking bets on whether we'd actually finished the first leg. So we went from sort of a thrilling finish to a bit of a drop, if I have to say. Was quite a tough time. We sort of fell off a cliff, if you like, from below. And at that time, of course, no one talked about mindfulness or asking for help, or that was seen as weakness. So,
of course, stiff upper lip and all that. Yes,
absolutely, and that's what I did. And to my detriment, I think, in the end. But I had to sell Maiden, and we literally the day after the race finished, she left with an all-male crew taking her off to Holland to sell her. And she really disappeared. And I guess what I thought was that because she was such an important boat and such an iconic boat, that she would always be owned by people who take care of her. And that wasn't the case, unfortunately. She went from person to person, fell into disrepair. I would hear about her every so often. I did Maiden 2, which was the first ever mixed gender team. I did another all-female crew. And then in 2014, 2015, just as a film was starting to be made about what we'd done 30 years ago, 25 years ago at the time, I had this email from the Seychelles saying, "Did you know Maiden is in our marina and she's been dumped here and basically left? We don't know where the bloke is. We're owed money and she's falling apart." So I went, right, keep her there.
Keep it. Here's a deposit. I'm coming.
So all of the original crew got together again, and we put together a big crowdfunder, and we raised the money to buy her again, and we bought her in November 2016.
Oh, brilliant!
And then I had a phone call, rather a wonderful part of the story, from King Hussein. Sponsored us the first time around the world.
Yep.
No one else would, and his daughter called me, and she said, "I hear you've rescued Dad's boat." I said, "Well, actually not Dad's boat, my boat, but And she said, "How can I help?" So she funded the shipping back to the UK, the whole restoration, and the first pass of our new project. And our new project is, I really wanted Maiden to inspire the next generation, and everyone's reaction to Maiden, to the boat itself, is always quite extraordinary. It's not just me. When she came back on the ship, there were grown men crying in the boatyard. And when she came in, and the way we got the name for the new project was the guy who was driving the travel lift, which took her out of the water. I could see he was, sort of dabbing his eyes, and I said, "You're right there." He said, "Yeah, it's a bit dusty in the yard today, isn't it?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "Well, he said it's just seeing the boat back." He said, "I put her in the water." He said, "I don't know if you remember, but I put her in the water 30 years ago." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, yeah."
Oh wow.
And I said, it is amazing how people react to her. And he said, "It's the Maiden factor." And I went, "Oh, that's a great name for my next project." So we started the project, the Maiden Factor, and we wanted to use her to inspire girls and women and empower. And she is living proof of what a girl can do from a pretty difficult background if just one person believes in her. You can touch her, you can go on board, you can see. So she's proof. So we put the project together around a 3-year world tour, and what we do is we raise funds for girls' education. 130 million girls around the world are currently not afforded that basic human right, and that's probably that's a low estimate.
Yeah.
So we decided that what we could do with Maiden is work with and support communities who enable girls in education and empower and support them to remain there through their teenage years. So we've got, developing countries where we need to get girls into education, and then we've got developed countries where a lot of us drop out around about the age of 15, which is when I got expelled. And those 3 years between the age of 15 and 18 are where you get your life opportunities. So, so we're doing multiple projects. We like working with communities because it takes a community to get a girl into education. It's not one element, it's the parents, it's the village, it's the community, it's the town, it's the boys, it's the schools, it's traveling safely to school. If you can't get to school, it's virtual education. So all of these things come together, and we just love what we do at the moment. Well, not quite at the moment because we've been sort of stopped in our tracks, but we did 33,000 miles over 18 months, raising a credible amount of money. for the communities and the charities that we work with. And then, of course, in March, we had to put a hold on things. So we've moved this year in its entirety to next year. This year is our 30th anniversary of completing the Whitbread. So next year it'll be our 30+1 anniversary, where we'll have all the events and things that we were going to have. We're supposed to be in New York right now. So it's been quite hard to sort of close things down for the moment, but we're keeping the momentum going. And we've got a big fundraiser going on at the moment. If anyone wants to become involved with Crowdfunder, who 5 years ago helped us buy the boat again. So my maiden voyage Crowdfunder is what we're doing at the moment. We've got teams of people doing some pretty crazy things to raise funds, and we just have to keep going, and then maybe get started again in September. So that's what we're looking at.
So Maiden, at the moment, you're sending different crews and different legs around the world on it, and are they chartering it to raise money, or how is that raising money for the Maiden Factor?
Yeah, so what we do is we have legendary guest skippers who do about 3 or 4 months on the boat. Our first skipper was Nikki Henderson, who came second in the Clipper. Our second skipper was Wendy Tuck, who came first woman to win a round the world race. Awesome. We've just had Liz Wardley of Volvo fame, and we have a 4 crew who are our permanent continuity on the boat. We have mile builders, which is young women who need to build up miles, and so that they can get their tickets and get on boats and everything else. We pay for everything for them. Then we have 2 guests who make donations to the charity, and we've had non-sailors, we've had sailors, we've had up to the age of 70. We can't have below the age of 18, unfortunately. The one thing I would say is, though, we have opened up guest places to men, but we haven't had any applications yet. Guys, you need to get your act together, and when the registration goes up again in August, you need to apply.
Well, all these rough and tough men that are out there, I think the prospect of spending an extended period of time with a large group of women on board a boat would scare the hell out of anyone. Would certainly be interesting. So Maiden's had to stop that voyage at the moment, and you're going to restart that again next year.
Yeah, so in March, the boat was she was in Antigua, and we were literally just about to leave for Fort Lauderdale, and we had to make a very hard decision, probably a long time before most people did. On the 16th of March, we saw the way the wind was blowing, and we said, no, we need to, people's safety is absolutely paramount, and at sea, that is something, as you've sailed, there is nothing more important.
Yeah, it drives everything, every decision. Yeah,
safety, exactly. So we put the project on hold. We managed to get the crew out just before the airport closed. My daughter, actually, who works for me, she runs our events. She was on the last flight out of Antigua. She then came home and voluntarily quarantined for 2 weeks, which we thought was the right thing to do, but less said about what's going on with that, the better. So we then, the crew are all sort of wherever they are. We're all working virtually and social distancing and everything else. But Maiden, of course, was left in Antigua, and we knew that hurricane season was coming up. So one of our amazing sponsors paid for Maiden to get shipped back to the UK, which was just so kind. Everyone in that process gave their time for free, or did something, or the kindness of people within the maritime industry towards Maiden has just been so overwhelming and so different from 30 years ago. She's now at Hammer Point Marina, where she's tucked up safe and well, and waiting to be taken out of the water so that we can do some work on her, so that if we can get going in September, we'll get going.
Yeah, fantastic. And you say June is when you're running this crowdfunder that's out there. How do people get more details about the crowdfunder, and how do they participate?
Okay, I don't know if you can see what I've got behind me, but I might have to turn around and read it to you.
Themaidenfactor.org, www.themaidenfactor.org.
Yeah, that's where you can donate. And then Crowdfunder is crowdfunder.co.uk/my-maiden-voyage. And you can go and find that. You can start your own fundraiser through Crowdfunder, or you can just donate. And every penny is very appreciated, because it all goes to the charity.
Well, and what a fantastic charity! You're helping girls and education around the world, but also you're flying the flag for what women can do in different bits and pieces. I'll make sure that in the blurb underneath the podcast, I've got all those links for people
Thank you.
that are out there. So, what's next if we get back to some form of new normality?
Well, I think we'll do a little bit of a dog leg. We'll take Maiden to the Canaries, where we can do some course sailing out there if people want to come out and get some lessons, and we can raise funds that way. And then we're looking at doing the Arc, which is a transatlantic race, which starts on November the 22nd. To race to St Lucia, where we can also have guests who can make donations, maybe around Britain and Ireland in September, if if we're allowed to do that. If we're not allowed to have people on the boat or distance, maybe we have a baton relay and pass it, sort of to people as we go around Britain and Ireland. I mean, we're literally making this up as we go along, same as everyone else at the moment. But we will do something, and then it'll be across to, as I say, doing the Arc, and then we'll be doing the east coast of America from March to September next year, which is exactly what we should have been doing this year. So
Yep.
we'll just literally move everything a year. And then after that, we were going to be doing Asia and India and Japan and then the west coast of America. So we'll just have to figure out how we can do that. Because the event, what's really important about what we do is not just that we interact with schools when we get into port, with hundreds of schoolgirls down onto the boat. That is chaos. I have to
Sure,
say.
yes.
But and we have grown-ups bursting into tears when they see her going, "Oh, I remember," and saying to their children, "This is Maiden who I was telling you about." We do screenings, we go into schools, we do talks, we do presentations, we educate yacht clubs about girls' education. They have big fundraisers. So it really is a completely inclusive experience. It's not just fundraising, everything else that goes on around it. And that's what we want to be able to get back to doing.
Yeah. So where have you found that you've had the biggest effect in changing people's views on your girls' education and all the rest of it in the ports that have been visited? Is there any one that sticks in your mind?
Not really. I mean, everywhere we go, and this is something. I mean, I didn't know 130 million girls didn't have an education before we started this project. I mean, I learn something every day about what stops a girl getting an education. So it's really there's no one place. I mean, when we started here, friends of mine were going, "What? How did I not know that?" And I'm going, "I don't know. How did I not know that?" So everywhere we go in, every presentation we give, our wonderful crew who are so much more experienced, so much better, and so much more qualified than we were 30 years ago. And they're our age when we were then. They're now ambassadors, they're teachers, they're speakers, they're fundraisers. I mean, these women are just extraordinary. And I do find that when we give people this information and when people come down to the boat, we have exhibitions and displays, people are really shocked. And, it seems to be something that sort of passed us all by. So making people aware of that and, sort of getting them to engage at any level is, has ended up being a really good thing.
Yeah, no matter how much the world seems to shrink, there are always bits around it that don't seem to get the coverage that they need to get. And I think our television culture means that whenever people see it, they feel as if something's it's either not right or it doesn't affect them or it doesn't affect anything else. And it's really important that these sorts of messages are put out. Do you target any particular countries from the charity for supporting girls, or is it across the globe?
Well, what we do is that, so most of the tour so far has been developed countries, although we did go to Sri Lanka, who have an amazing education system for girls and very proud of it, and quite rightly so. I mean, we learned a lot from them. But we go to, we've obviously been to Australia, New Zealand, we've done the west coast of America, which was phenomenal. Because that was when the film came out. So the film,
brilliant.
Maiden would sail in, and we literally had one guy come down to the boat in floods of tears. And I was standing in front of the boat, and he was walking towards me, and he started to cry. and he's talking to his daughters, two teenage daughters about, and I'm thinking, oh, well, still got it. And he walks straight past me up to Maiden and goes, this is amazing. I'm like, charming, thank you very much. I am the skipper. Anyway, we just got this phenomenal response. So, as I say, it's mostly developed countries. So most of the time we've been working with communities keeping girls in school. So they're, such I can't say the word, clever ideas about keeping teenagers in school, having creches in school, work experience, and in supporting communities, where girls sometimes would be, it would be thought of as a normal thing that they would go and work at the age of 15, 16, So the fundraising we do is for developing countries, and we have supported charities, I think, in probably about 20 different countries, and it's across the board. It's digging a well in a village and making sure it's managed by women because they want their daughters to go to work. We've bought books for schools. We've helped train teachers. We've helped with projects that give women lessons in how to pass on life opportunities to their village, their community, or whatever. So it's a broad range of stuff that we've worked with.
No, absolutely fantastic. Well, the charity is doing a huge amount of good around the world. Hopefully, people listening to this will go and click on the links below and donate whatever they can, and certainly follow what's happening to Maiden and all the other bits and pieces around. Tracy, it's been a real pleasure talking to you today. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.